I would like to discuss a little bit about why is the CAFO method bad? Why is it not good?
I don't think it's totally bad. I lived in Virginia, southeastern Virginia for a while. Let me explain, because I think there's some misunderstandings about that. And in southeast Virginia, there was a lot of hogs being raised. And basically, they were raised the old-fashioned way. They were out in farm fields, and kind of and they were fenced fields, so there was a lot of them there. It wasn't like they were just, you know, one here and one over there. There was a lot of them there, but they weren't. They were allowed to poop on the ground, and basically the rivers were a mess because all the manure ran off into the creeks. So one of the things that CAFOs do is they collect the manure. One of the things that CAFOs do is they collect that waste so it can be managed in a better way. So I think in that respect, CAFOs are a better way of managing animal waste than the way that I described in southeast Virginia. So from that standpoint, I don't really have a problem with them. I don't think, if you look at the big total picture in terms of how we get meat and how, again, it goes back to the greenhouse gases and all the land that's being used to produce food for these animals. I mean, the wonderful thing about CAFOs is it's produced meat that's cheap. So you can get that, but it's had a lot of environmental effects. I mean, because of the fact that we've gone to a very, and I think health effects too. The meat consumption, and people like to eat meat. You know, for a lot of people, that's really, if you in the poor countries, when they start getting wealthier, they start consuming more meat. So, but it comes at a cost. It comes at a real cost.
I'm not involved personally in any confined animal operations. I know folks who are. Probably not a person in here wants to go buy a piece of meat from the grocery store if you know it's full of antibiotics. And we all want the animal agriculture community to get away from using all the meds and the antibiotics and such that's in the meat. In the cattle industry, there are some folks with small numbers of cattle who are trying to figure out how to make this happen. Over 50% of their calves die before they ever are marketable, because even though we have the cleanest soil as far as the bad things for animal agriculture, we have the cleanest soil in the world here in North America. Even though that's the fact, you can't find a piece of soil anywhere in the state that doesn't have blackleg laying dormant in that soil, and it can lay there for several human generations until the right animal comes by and picks it up. So virtually all cattle producers are using certain vaccines in order to keep their calves from dying. Here's an element that most people don't realize about CAFOs. In a CAFO, to use that term, what you're doing in part, and this is one of the good things, is you're taking that animal off of the soil, off of the dirt, and you're putting them in an environment, and you're sealing that environment. The folks I know with hog farms, you literally, as a member of the family on that farm, when you enter that hog farm, that hog building, you go into a shower room, you take a scrub shower, and you put on work clothes on the other side of the shower, just like someone going into a microbiology lab would do. And when you come out, you do the same thing coming out, because they give not 1 ounce of antibiotics to those hogs. They are 100% antibiotic free, and they're 100% med free, because they're being raised in a sterile environment. Now that produces a big sludge out somewhere, and that sludge is converted to fertilizer. But those animals are going to market with no antibiotics in them as a result. So, you know, that's one of the good things that nobody ever talks about. I'm not familiar enough with them to talk about other things, but I do know that's one thing that impresses me, is that our meat on the shelf in the stores today in North America is the cleanest, healthiest meat in the world, because of the fact that we have some confined animal operations that are producing a lot of this meat. So, take it or leave it, that is a fact.
I'm just a little bit disappointed that you didn't get into an explanation of what you meant by, well, I'll start over. What was it, and I think you both brought it up, you brought up the ethics. And what that brought into my mind was, are these happy chickens? Are they happy cows? Are they happy bulls? Is that related at all to anything that's involved in this discussion?
That's a good question, and I think that's part of what people, they look at it. They look at these animals in confinement, and of course, one side tries to make it look as bad as possible, and I've never been in a CAFO, so I don't know, but they are kept in rather small quarters. Now, are these animals happy? I don't know, but I think we tend to anthropomorphize a bit. We put ourselves in that situation and think, well, if I was there, I wouldn't be happy. But they don't think the same as we do, and I don't really know how they feel, But, I read an article about someone in New York City was, this woman killed her pet hamster, and she was arrested for that. And the guy who wrote the article says, well, New York City actually poisons rodents, and not too far away from where this thing was killed. There's this big disconnect the way we treat pets. I have a pet cat, and this cat is well taken care of, and the way we treat animals. I don't know. I think it's a personal thing myself, and that's part of the ethics of it. And I think that's very much a personal issue in terms of how you feel about animals. And I can't tell you what to think, and I have my own thoughts about it. I kind of think that if I was an animal, I'd maybe want a little bit more space to roam around in. I don't know.
I attempted to address ethics earlier, and I mentioned it a couple of times. Ethics involves philosophy, morality, theology, worldview. In this case, it involves the emotions that people associate to animals, and that's a debate all in and to itself. But the main thing that I wanted to get with on the issue of ethics is different people's ethics lead them to a different conclusion, because it's a compilation of all these other ideas that compose who you are. What I'm saying is, have a clear conscience with your diet. If your ethics leads you to a vegan diet, then eat a vegan diet. But I would really, really suggest to you that if you do, that you use some protein supplements.
Like milk.
But if your ethics lead you in a different direction, then go in that other direction. You want to have a clear conscience as you move forward and with the people that you're around. But as far as the animals and emotions, I think the cow is happiest. The more cows, the bull is happiest. The more cows he has around him. Which ironically you wouldn't think so, because the skinnier he gets, the more cows he's chasing, because he's not eating, he's chasing his harem around. So ironically, he will starve himself if he has too many cows around him. You can't put too many cows around a single bull. So animals don't always think the way we think they think. Whether they have emotions or not, I'm not going to try to get into that whole debate here. But you do have to live with your own conscience no matter who you are.
I just meant that you can end it with this, but I just meant to make the point that a lot of the argument is involved in that ethic.
It's worldview.
Yeah.
And we need to move on.
Take our question there.